Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fam Sports Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. And Mars, this is our weekly game show discussing the top matchups of the week. And we are in week one. Mars, football is right at our doorstep, the games.
Yeah, man. I mean, starting this weekend, I mean, it's only a few days away. And just to think how far we've come from not knowing if we're going to have a season to finally, having one. And I think that's already an accomplishment within itself to actually just have a season and get on the field.
Yeah, and I have some games for the student athletes playing football. It could be for their last time, and so that's definitely the important thing. But I want to welcome our fans. This is for 1AA, right? Our Section 1AA weekly show. And the way it works out, obviously, if you're new to us, make sure you check out the banner. You follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, right, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, give us feedback. We appreciate, again, all the support that we've had so far. I want to continue to grow this thing. But Mars, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the games on slate. Just tell us what games are coming up this week. We're going to break down or go into about 5 of the games. And then one of those 5 is our game of the week. And I'm curious if anyone could tell the hint of what our game of the week is. And our game of the week this week is Suffern versus Arlington that you can see at the top right here. We'll dive into a few of those games. We'll go into the game week, and then we'll pick the games at the end, all of the games. So we won't break down all the games due to time purposes, but we'll dive into a few of them, and then we'll pick all of them. So, honestly, let's just jump right into it. And one of the games, our top games this week is Yonkers Force at Yonkers Brave. This is the rivalry in Yonkers. Again, both of these programs combined all the bunch of Yonkers schools, and they've developed this little bit of a, who owns Yonkers, one of the big cities of New York. And these guys, just to give some interesting stats for them, each away team has won the last 2 meetings. So this is the third year that these programs have been around. They played each other the last 2 years, and the away team has always come out victor, which I found interesting. In 2019, Yonkers Brave won at Yonkers Force 14-8, and in 2018, Yonkers Force won at Yonkers Brave 15-0. So does that trend continue, Mars? This is going to be an interesting one, but I want to go into the keys for each team, and we'll start with the away team, Mars, Yonkers Force. And offensively, I thought they were pretty good last year. They graduated a bunch of guys, but defensively was where they struggled. And Yonkers Force, I'm expecting on offense, you're going to see some gun, you're going to see some tight end, you'll see some wings. So you'll see some wing T action out of the gun. You'll see some spread concepts. Expecting to see some double wing action, Mars. And I think the big key to their offense is going to be one of those returning faces. That's Elijah Cordero. Okay, I think it's going to be his show. Whether, I'm not sure he'll be at the quarterback or line up at running back, but whatever it is, I believe he's their top weapon. I'm expecting to see a bunch of him going against this Yonkers Brave team, Mars. But the question I have is, who's going to be Robin, right? Who's going to be that next guy? And that's, a guy like Ethan Fajardo, Randy Santana, who is going to step up and kind of help lead this offense. A bunch of new faces. So, what are your thoughts offensively of that Yonkers Force before I go into the defense?
I mean, I really like their athletes, and I think that having those skill players really does help the offense really move forward. But I really think it's going to have to do a lot with the offensive line, in my opinion, especially in this type of offensive scheme.
Absolutely. And moving to the defense, Yonkers Brave runs that option offense, and Yonkers Force, it's really going to, whenever you play a team that runs option offense, it's about discipline, right? You got to be disciplined on defense. And, I'm expecting to see Yonkers Force come out in 5-man fronts, Mars, to try to slow down this option attack. They're going to put pressure on your 3 technique. You attack your defensive end. They're going to attack your linebackers. They're going to attack your second contain. All these people are going to have pressure on them at each point of attack. And, guys like Quadir Holmes and at the 3 tech, right? One of their returning defensive linemen, he's going to have to make some plays. Another guy, Devin Gracia at the defensive end spot, right? Can he contain the quarterback run? Can he contain the pitch? And then guys at the second level, I mentioned Cordero, right? Someone's got to cover the pitch man. So they're going to attack each level of the defense, starting at the 3 technique, going all the way to the edge. And it's all about staying disciplined. All right. Overall, they graduated a lot of household names, 18 seniors. You're going to see a lot of new faces, and who's going to step up for the Yonkers Force team? That's kind of the big question. But going to Yonkers Brave now, Mars, I mentioned offensively, they run that triple option. They make smart, you have to make smart decisions. Coach talked about playing a little bit up tempo. So I'm interested to see how they work that into their option offense. Not so much to speed up the game, but to create efficiency. So I'm expecting them to see some 5-man front, like we talked about on the defensive side. If they can get through the initial surge of that 5-man front, I think they can get big chunk plays, Mars. They have the athletes. They have the skill guys to hit big plays. They got the speed. But another question is going to be play action pass, because that's going to be huge. If they can get positive yards, if they can create momentum, that's where the play action pass is going to become big, especially when the defense starts to condense in that 5-man front. A guy to look at for me, quarterback DJ Holmes, right? Coach talked, JV kid, he's got to be smart with the football. He's coming into varsity level. He's got to run the show. If they can limit the turnovers, limit the negative plays, and get the ball to these playmakers like Joshua Williams, Bray, Needham, they have speed at least the tailback spot. So they can work that pitch. Question is going to be, for me, the fullback and the quarterback protecting the ball, Mars. It's option offense, Mars. What do you take out from that?
Well, the important thing is that, in an option offense like this, you have to really control the flow of the game. I think that if Brave can really establish themselves as being the more disciplined team and really establish the run, especially with like you said, the outside, really try to get the break contain really, which is with using the pitch, then this could be a really long day for Yonkers Force. And at the end of the day, I really think that this type of offense just wears down defenses, and that's the point. If you can do that effectively, then you control momentum, and then you just can run a team ragged, because they just won't be able to really keep up with just the ground and pound that you're just going to have on against them.
Defensively for Yonkers Brave, Mars, we talked about the wing T offense, and so where is the target going to be? And I think Yonkers Force likes to attack the C gaps out to the edge. So to me, guys like Brandon Kane, Treat Williams, you got to prevent big plays, right? And if they get to the outside, the secondary, like Williams, like Bray, they have to prevent big plays on the outside. They got to protect the C gap. They're really going to put pressure on your edge defenders and your linebackers. So that's going to be big for Yonkers Brave in this game, Mars. And for me, the matchup to watch is going to be Yonkers Brave offensive line versus the Yonkers Force front seven. A lot of unknowns on both sides. And that's why it is my matchup to watch, because who is going to step up in this battle of the trenches, right? That's going to be the key to who wins this game, Mars. Any last thoughts before we move to the next
one? I mean, you kind of hit the mark with the battle of the trenches. I mean, in high school football, it's always going to be a fight of the trenches. And I think in this type of scenario, whoever can control the line of scrimmage is really just going to control the game in general. So I really think it's going to be really important for both teams to win on the offensive line side and also the defensive line side.
Yeah, who wins that matchup? Let's go to the next game, Mars. We have Carmel at Fox Lane. That's going to be one of our matchups to watch. And Carmel is 3-1 versus Fox Lane. They have won 3 straight. The last time they played each other was in 2015. Fox Lane at home is 1-2 versus Carmel. The last time they defeated Carmel at home was in 2010. Right? So it's been a while, right? So we're talking about 10 years now. And going into the teams, Mars, when I look at Carmel, 2019 they had a top 5 offense and defense. They were number 1 in 1AA. But they graduated 27 seniors. And when we spoke to Coach K, he said this could potentially be the youngest team he's ever had. So a lot of new faces at Carmel, a lot of inexperience. And on offense, Mars, we know what Carmel, they like to run multiple, okay? But I'm expecting them to simplify the game plan a little bit. I'm expecting with the young team to bring in 11 personnel with 1 tight end, 1 running back, or 20 personnel, bring in multiple running backs with no tight end. I think they're going to test the strength of Fox Lane, right? So they're going to test the muscle of Fox Lane up front. And to me, bring in a tight end like Risley, bring in a tight end like Fusco, who's got some size. Test that strength, okay? They have multiple backs in Carmel. Not a lot of known faces, but I think they have a lot of faces, right? So you talk about Massey, Rosenford, Massey, like I just mentioned. There's a couple guys that you can hand the ball to, and then play action. So I'm interested to see who wins that quarterback job. And if they can go play action, quick throws to some of their wide receivers, guys like McDonald, Richardson, Fiore, right? So if they can establish the run, if they can bring in heavy personnel and establish the run, I will open up the passing game for this team. Mars, any thoughts on the offense?
No, I mean, the fact is Todd K is going to I mean, I've said this before. He likes to throw the kitchen sink at you, but you might not be able to throw the whole sink, but might have to throw some plates and some forks and stuff. But I know Todd K is a good coach, and at the end of the day, he's going to kind of dive deep into his playbook and kind of pick the things that work best for his kids. I think that's kind of the important thing about a season like this. You have to know what is your strengths, and the fact that he graduated, like you said, 27 seniors, they're going to kind of have to test the waters to see what they can and cannot do.
Absolutely. And looking at the defensive side of the ball, Mars, Carmel will give you multiple looks, right? They like to run a 4-2-5. They like to go to 3-3-5. They'll even give a 5-man front if you go into heavy sets. But going against Fox Lane has talked about going into the spread a little bit more this year. It's not going to be the same exact offense that you saw last year. And so I'm expecting a lot of 4-2-5s and 3-3s if they're going into the spread looks from Carmel. And I think the biggest focus is going to be stopping their running back. Horvath has had a good week of practice. We'll get into him on the Fox Lane side. He's not the same as last year's running back Washington, who was a kind of a bulldozer at the running back spot to run you over. Horvath is more of a shifty runner. He's more of a guy who will make a juke on you instead of run you down. But an effective running back nonetheless, and he's kind of going to be the one to carry the load. And I think they're going to have to try to confuse. They're going to have a young quarterback at Fox Lane. Their quarterback graduated last year. It's going to be an inexperienced quarterback. Look for Carmel to try to, it's hard with this reduced practice to create a lot of different coverages and different looks, but try to put in a little bit of wrinkles to confuse the young quarterback into making some mistakes in the spread offense. Because when you go into the spread, you're looking either to spread it out to run, or you're trying to throw the ball a little bit. So I'm interested to see what Fox Lane does, but expect some different looks from Carmel. Expect them to rally to the fall and be a disciplined football team on defense, Mars. But overall, I think they need to play a clean game, win the turnover battle, and make a couple plays on special teams. When you're a young football team, that's the way to win. Moving to Fox Lane, Mars, last year they only gave up 17.4 points a game, which was 10th in A. I think defense is going to be the strength of this team. They return about 5 of the 11 starters. They run a 4-3 defense, especially if you're going to come out with a tight end. And for me, look to stop the run, right? So Carmel also has a young quarterback. They're probably going to rely on the running game. It starts with linebacker Friedman. I think he's one of the better linebackers in the class. But it's going to be a group effort. On the D-line, you're talking about Lupino, Prisco, Zegaris. And then at the linebacker spot, I mentioned Friedman, a guy like Lupino. The big thing for me on defensively, win the early downs, get Carmel to 2nd and 3rd and long, and make them have to rely on the young quarterback. I think Fox Lane has the pieces at all 3 levels. If you get into a passing game, I think they have some DBs to make some plays, like Horvath, Olsen, Marlowe, who's a young defensive back who's had a good week of practice when he spoke to coach. So I think that Fox Lane's defense could create trouble for Carmel if they get them down early. So it's going to be a tough task for a young Carmel offense, and I think Fox Lane's defense is going to be strong. But going to Fox Lane's offense, Mark, before we go into the discussion and talk about a matchup, I mentioned they're going into the spread, right? So they have some returning offensive linemen, but they don't have their bruiser at running back. They have more of a shifty back, like I mentioned in Horvath. I think they're going to rely on that running back. I think they're going to spread you out to run the ball, and I think they're going to rely on a quick passing game. Again, when Carmel goes to a 4-2-5 and a 3-3, right, they're trying to match up with you in the spread. So the best way to do it is get the ball out of the young quarterback's hand quickly, get him some easy reads and easy throws to make him feel comfortable, whoever that young quarterback is going to be, right? And I think that will relieve a lot of pressure off. If you get him in 2nd and 3rd and long, that's when the pressures are going to start to come in. That's when the defensive line is going to be pinning their ears back to get to the quarterback. So that's going to be huge for Fox Lane's offense. Mars, any Fox Lane comments?
Well, the fact is, Carmel, in my opinion, I think Carmel's going to probably prioritize their defense, especially for this first week. I think Carmel likes to give you a bunch of different looks, and they like to stun. And I think that's the important thing for Fox Lane is to be able to practice picking up the stunt. I think that's one of the most difficult things for any lineman in general, let alone on a shortened season. Learning how to adjust when the pressure comes. How do you handle that? And I think that for Fox Lane, especially with a young quarterback, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to make quick throws when the pressure is on. And I think that if they can do that, it will make Carmel's life more difficult because if you have a poised quarterback with a stunt coming, it's hard to stop it.
Yes. If they know, their hot reads is going to be a big one. Mm-hmm. Is kind of what you're describing it. But for me, the matchup to watch, and kind of reiterated it in my breakdown, Mars, the quarterback of Fox Lane, whether it's a guy like Eric Miller or Jack Travis, whoever wins that quarterback job against Carmel's D, right? So, Carmel's a disciplined football team. They're going to be well coached on the defensive end, excuse me. I'm interested to see that matchup, that kind of what Carmel brings to the table defensively and how the young quarterback reacts. And that's going to be a really intriguing matchup to watch in this game. Mars, going to the next big game that we both are looking forward to is North Rockland at John Jay East Fishkill. And just some interesting stats for you. John Jay East Fishkill is 6-4 versus North Rockland since 2004. John Jay East Fishkill has won 2 straight versus North Rockland. They won in 2019 at home 38-0. Right, and they've won the last 2 home games versus North Rockland. So this is North Rockland traveling to East Fishkill. East Fishkill's gotten that matchup at home a few times, and most recently. And John Jay East Fishkill at home has been a very good team the last 2 years, Mars. They're 9-2 at home. Really strong football team at home. And when I look at North Rockland, defensively is their stalwart. I mean, when we spoke to Coach and we did our team previews, Coach talked about how defense is, what North Rockland is known for. And they were 5th in AA last year, and I'm expecting them to have a formidable defense again this year. And 2019 on the road, they were 3-2, so they were a solid road team as well. So it's going to be intriguing to see, which trend moves forward. But let's start with North Rockland, the away team, Mars. Offensively, we know what North Rockland is, right? They're a ground and pound team. You're going to see some you're going to see tight ends. They'll throw in some spread concepts, I would imagine. But it's power versus power. And John Jay East Fishkill likes to cover the guards, come in a 4-man front. They'll either bring in a safety into the box, they'll bring in an extra linebacker. So I'm expected to see some heavy looks on both fronts and see who wins out. That's what I'm expecting at North Rockland. But I think the most interesting thing is going to be who wins the quarterback job for North Rockland. Is it Mateo Rodriguez or Tommy Kresbeck? And what they do, how they play. Because if the quarterback play is elevated, if they can make some consistent throws, make some one-on-one throws, I think it's going to bring a balanced attack to North Rockland. I think it'll elevate that group as a whole because, not dissing anybody, but, passing, and Coach even talked about it, the passing game has been a little lacking the last couple of years for North Rockland. So if they can find that, that'll bring some balance to this offense, and it can elevate them overall. Now, defensively, Mars, they have a lot of secondary guys they have to replace. They're going to be young on the secondary, and they're going up against a quarterback in Beal and some weapons for John Jay East Fishkill that could cause issues. So the big thing for the defense, prevent big plays in the passing game, Mars. And try to create some pressure up front without stunting, right? So have those front 4 guys get to the quarterback, limit the time the quarterback has to throw. They also like to roll their quarterback out, so set the edge of the team to help your secondary because I think East Fishkill is going to try to test it throwing the football. Mars, any comments on North Rockland and their matchup versus East Fishkill?
Well, at the end of the day, you kind of mentioned the fact that North Rockland is a ground and pound team, so is East Fishkill. But I think that East Fishkill does a better job at doing other things than just ground and pound. And you mentioned the fact that North Rockland needs to kind of expand their playbook, expand what they do effectively. I think we've always known North Rockland as being a very good run team, but if they can add to their repertoire and be a good pass on situation team, then it will help them in the long run. And I think that's what they need to do. They need to make sure not only do they win the trenches, but win the secondary battle. Like whether their receiver will win against their corner, as John Jay's corner is going to be the question.
Yeah, and moving to John Jay's Fishkill, Mars, offensively, North Rockland brings back a bunch of their veteran linebackers and a couple returning linemen. So it may not be so easy to run the ball against North Rockland because they're going to have some size. But they have the young secondary, right, like we talked about. And John Jay's Fishkill has one of the better quarterbacks in the class. Come back, he was our Frank's finest quarterback for 1AA. And they have some weapons and guys like Ryan and Peyton. Look for them to spread it out a little bit. Look for them to go into trips and test that young secondary. Look for them to roll out Beal and give them kind of a run-pass option. And I think they're going to test them downfield. I think they're going to try to bomb it downfield and try to hit some big-time plays in the passing game. On the defensive side, Mars, the inside linebacker play is going to be huge. We mentioned the ground and pound. They're really going to try to isolate the linebackers And I'm interested to see how East Fishkill's linebackers do. Right? They lost a couple linemen, defensive linemen. They lost some linebacker play. Like, the North Rockland can really wear on you offensively and wear you down. So this is going to be big for John Jay's Fishkill to try to make them get in second and third and long and have them do something they don't normally want to do, right? Their identity is to run the ball. So try to make their identity a passing team, right? So that's going to be big for John Jay's Fishkill, Mars. And just to look at the matchup, my big matchup for this game, the John Jay's Fishkill receivers, talk about Ryan, Peyton, some of the other guys versus that secondary on North Rockland. That, to me, is where the big matchup to me is going to be the deciding factor for this game. Any John Jay's Fishkill notes?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, as you mentioned, John Jay, if your game plan should be to force North Rockland to want to throw, because then you're throwing into probably your biggest strength on your defense. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if it comes to that, it's going to be a long day for North Rockland. I mean, they have to prioritize getting it to be 3rd and 3 on a little short yardage 3rd down scenario, so that they can have a better chance of getting it. But if you're getting to the 3rd and 8s and a high school level against a secondary like John Jay's Fishkills, it's going to be really, really a long day. Yeah. North Rockland really wants to control the pace, try to make this the shortest game possible, and get a big playoff where they can kind of take the lead and really shock John Jay first week of the season in a COVID season.
Yeah. Mars, going to the next game, our big matchup, and that's RCK at New Rochelle, right? So New Rochelle, the defending champs, obviously going through the coaching change, having a new coach and Coach Rhett. New Rochelle is 2-1 versus RCK since 2004. They haven't played each other a lot. But New Ro's 2-1 versus RCK. They won in 2017, which was the last time they played them, and they won 48-6. And looking at New Rochelle at home, obviously New Rochelle is the big dog in 1AA. New Rochelle at home, their last home loss was in 2018, but that was due to a forfeit. And I'm not going to go into why that game was forfeit, but that was the last loss they had at home. But before that, Mars, the last time New Rochelle lost at home, actually losing on the football field, was in 2014. Right, so 6 years ago, they are 28-1 at home, Mars, the last 29 home games. So obviously going to New Rochelle and winning is very difficult. So we're going to see if RCK is up to the challenge. But I will say this, RCK is bringing back some veteran teams. And we have a shortened season, shortened practices. Can you catch New Rochelle a little rusty? Can you catch them a little bit down? Can you make some plays? This is what's going to be really intriguing about this shortened season is, are we going to see some upsets? Right? So to me, RCK, and we'll go into them first. Offensively, they run that double wing offense. And New Rochelle, going up against the New Rochelle team, they're going to have a lot of speed defensively, especially on the edge. I think they're returning one of the best secondaries. But their linebackers are going to have a lot of speed. All right? And when you play a team with a lot of speed, it's important for the running backs in this to do one cut and go. And what that means is know where you're going, make a quick decision, and get as many yards as you can. If you try to dribble around, if you try to, try to make the big play and, cut back, and it's not going to happen, right? They have too much speed. But what you can do is try to grind them out a little bit and make one cut, get upfield as fast as you can, get as many yards as you can. And I think what's really going to, help RCK, now they like to attack the C gaps and like to get to the edge. Running counters is going to be big, right? Because New Rochelle is very aggressive, okay? If you catch them over-aggressive and you can get those cutbacks, you can get those counters, that's where you can get those big plays. And another thing is the passing game, okay? You got to keep New Rochelle balanced on defense, right? If you just try to run on them, they'll pin their ears. If you just try to throw it a bunch of times, they got too much speed that they'll make a couple plays and force interceptions. So have a balanced attack. But to me, the most important group is going to be this offensive line, Mars. Guys like Vanderlyn, DeGroat, and a young guy, Nunez, who Coach said had a great week of practice. These are the kind of guys who are going to have to, if RCK is going to have a chance on offense, to set the tone and win up front. Defensively, you're going up against an New Rochelle team with a bunch of running backs, and they like to get on the edge. Okay, they like to hit the C gap when it's downhill runs, and they like to get on the edge with some sweeps, jet sweeps, and some outside runs, because they know if they can break contain, all their backs have the speed to hit the home run, get huge chunk plays, right? So it's imperative for RCK to reduce those plays as much as possible. It's not easy. It's a full game effort. It's a group effort. But one play can change this game, right? Nurse will go on a 60-yard touchdown run, and that'll blow a game open. So that's going to be huge for the defense. Mark, do you have any comments about RCK?
Yeah, I mean, playing against New Rochelle is never an easy task, no matter who the coach may be. New Rochelle is a great program. It's always been successful. But one of the big things that you have to understand with New Rochelle is that I think, especially week one, right, I think you're going to catch them in the spot where they might be over-aggressive. And you're going to have to use misdirection a lot to kind of bring out that aggression and maybe pointing to the wrong way. But when it comes to defensively, you kind of name it exactly. You do not want them to get outside, right? That's the one thing you do not want to do. And New Rochelle has that wow speed where if they break the contain, it could be gone.
Yes.
And I'm just not sure if RCK has the speed to stop to really catch them if they get outside. But really, the biggest thing for defense, you have to rally.
Yes.
You have to rally. You have to show strength in numbers, in my opinion. Because if one guy may miss, but if you add like 3 other hats to the ball, then at least you're gonna get him down a few yard gain rather than a big play touchdown or something like that.
Yeah, and moving now to New Rochelle, Mars, offensively, I think the front seven RCK is going to be pretty strong at the linebacker spot and the defensive line. But again, what is New Rochelle? They have really good speed, so attack the edges, right? Run your offense. That's it. Run your offense. Test if RCK can keep you from the edge. And they're going to have a cast of running backs, so I'm interested to see how they use all these running backs, guys like Colin Jennings, Gary Phillips, Jason Izarari. They have a bunch of different guys. So I'm interested to see what New Rochelle does, how they kind of spread the wealth, right? But I would imagine they're going to attack the C gap. They're going to try to get outside. And I'm also interested to see the quarterback play and see some play action throws out of it to a tight end who's been playing who's been having a really good week of practice, Isaiah Massey. New Rochelle, I mean, we talk about this each time. They have a lot of kids, right? They have a lot of athletes. So I'm interested to see the wealth being spread around. Defensively, we know they're going to be one of the fastest defense, if not the fastest defense in 1AA. They got speed at linebackers, they got speed at the edge, and they got speed in the secondary. I think Massey could be a breakout player for them. He's, Coach raves about the work that he's put in and the leadership that he's shown. He could be one of those New Rochelle linebackers that causes a lot of problem on the edge, either rushing the passer or stopping the run. And to me, the big thing is they run that double wing offense. They want to try to grind you out, get them in passing situations, force their quarterback to make plays, and don't let them run on you. Don't let them hold the ball long, because that's what they want to do. They want to get those yards, grind it out on you, keep the offense off the field. But the secondary, if they get them in passing down, the secondary's loaded, Mars. You're talking about Jennings, Phillips, Smith, Gregory. They're going to be a loaded secondary, so you want them in long down situation where you can get those ball hawks going at the football. And to me, the matchup to watch, I'm really interested to see this New Rochelle rushing attack, that offensive line and the combination of running backs versus the RCK defensive front and linebackers. So front seven versus the rush attack. I'm really interested to see that matchup, because if RCK is going to have a chance in this one, those guys are going to need to show out and win that battle for a full game, and that's going to be the interesting one. Mars, any comments about New Rochelle?
Yeah, I mean, at the offensive point of view, just like you said before, just run your offense. I mean, if you can get to the outside, first off, you have a very good offensive line. You have a lot of backs. You can if you get to the outside, you will definitely run the show on offense. When it comes to defense, trust your secondary. In my opinion, I'd say send the heat. Because you have in my opinion, probably the top secondary in Section 1AA, and I would, if I was a coach, I'd bet on them. I'd say I will bet that they can play man, and I can send the heat and make the quarterback have to make a choice. Are you going to throw a risky throw and have a chance of an interception or a turnover or any sort of turnover, or you're going to have to make one hell of a play? And that would be something that I would look at as a defensive coach for New Rochelle.
All right, Mars, let's go to our game of the week, and this is our final matchup. And again, we're going to pick all the games, so don't think if we didn't talk about your game that we're not going to discuss it at all. So we're going to pick the game, but our game of the week is Arlington at Suffern, Mars. And, looking into the interesting stats of the game, Arlington is 6-1 versus Suffern since 2004. They have won 6 straight. The last time they played them was in 2018, where they won 40-6, Mars. Suffern's last victory against Arlington was back in 2007. The average margin of victory for Arlington, 23 and a half points, Mars. So when they go up, Arlington has smacked them. Just being honest, right? So, but Suffern in 2019, which they are home, they were 4-0 at home. Arlington is 4-2 on the road. This is again going to be a good road team versus a good home team. And let's start with the away team, Mars. Arlington's offense, they like to come out in I formation, and then they'll show you some spread concepts. They do like to mix it up. But I think they have two really complementary backs in Richie Finn and Xavier Grant. And I think they have a veteran, strong offensive line. I think they're going to test the strength of Suffern versus the strength of Arlington, which is that offensive line and the two different types of running backs. Richie Finn, I think, is an all-around solid back. And Xavier Grant is kind of a slasher, a one-cut-go kind of guy who likes to attack the C-gap and outside. Richie Finn can kind of run anywhere in between the tackles. But those two complement each other pretty well. And I think they're going to be a formidable rush attack. So I think they're going to show their size and strength to try to run the ball and beat up on some of those defenders like Lubin, like Young, like Janua, like Krebs, and like Chap. I think this is going to be an intriguing battle. And to me, the passing game is kind of what's going to be the dictator of this, because I think the rush attack is going to be solid. But what really would elevate this offense is a guy like quarterback Joey Fortunato. If he can get the passing game going, throwing it to guys like Ian Griffin, Venzolato, that's going to be the intriguing part on the offensive side, is this pass attack, how it moves along. On the defensive side, Suffern likes to go into the spread, but they want to run. Can they slow down their two-headed monster? I talked about Arlington's two-headed monster. Can they shut down Suffern's two-headed monster and Lubin and Chow? Two, again, complementary backs to each other. Lubin, a great all-around guy, and Chow, another kind of not a electric type runner, but he runs with power, he runs with good balance. This is going to be a tough challenge for Arlington to stop. Can they get Suffern to be a passing team? I mentioned Suffern wants to run the ball. They spread you out to try to run it. Can you get Suffern to be a passing team? And that's going to start with winning up front, right? So Suffern's got some big linemen, but Arlington's got some linemen too. So can you close the gaps? Can you win at the point of attack is going to be big. And I'm expecting, Arlington to come out in some 5-man fronts, maybe some 4-2-5 that they try to spread it out. And it's going to be big for linebackers, Finn, and whoever's the linebacker next to him. You want those linemen to take up blockers, and for those linebackers to run around and make plays. They're going to have to make some one-on-one plays. They're going to have to tackle well in open field. This is going to be really big for them to slow down the spread. It's going to be a group effort. Secondary is going to definitely have to get involved because Suffern does like to attack not just the C-gap, but get out on the edge. So it's going to be a group effort by everybody. But these linebackers are really going to have to show out, Mars. Any comments about Arlington?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the most difficult things is to really stop the run attack of Suffern. I think that's going to be crucial to any sort of success that Arlington has. And I think this is going to be I don't think this is going to be the same type of victory that Arlington, the same team that Arlington's used to playing where, they, like you said, averaging 23.5 points a game.
Winning by 23.
Yeah, winning by 23 points a game. I don't think it's going to be the same Suffern team. So my biggest concern for Arlington is that they might overlook Suffern as being a team, just like any old Suffern team, but I don't think it is, not by a long shot. So when that's defensively, they have to keep the rush attack on Suffern intact.
And I actually did a little bit of a video breakdown about Arlington's defense and some of the ways that they could stop Suffern's offense. For this video, we're going to talk about Arlington's defense and the different ways they could potentially stop Suffern's offense. And Suffern really likes to run the football out of their spread looks, whether it's 2v2, 3v1. They'll bring in an H-back to add an extra blocker. And they do a really good job of attacking outside the B gap to the sideline. So that's right outside the tackle, right? That C gap to the D gap. Suffern does a really good job of that. And they do it by pulling linemen. They'll pull their guard. They can pull their tackle. They'll pull both. And they also really like to create some nice down blocks on the play side. Create some double teams. Move the line of scrimmage. Move bodies. With that offensive line that they have, they do a really good job of creating space for the running backs. And this is against Mamaroneck. Arlington played. They don't run the same exact play, but similar concepts on where they're attacking. So Mamaroneck is in a spread look. You're going to see a double on the nose tackle. You're going to see this tackle go to the backside backer, and they're going to pull lineman. Okay, this guard wants to kick out the first defender he sees. The second pulling lineman wants to get to the linebacker. But you could see they want to try to attack the C gap, okay? Similar to what Suffern might do. What Arlington does, they come out on a 5-man front. And not only do they come out on a 5-man front, but both tackles are on the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle. They literally have 2 defenders sitting in this C gap. Right? So they're really trying to prevent them from attacking that C gap. And I could see a similar concept against Suffern. But it's the details of this play that's what makes it very important. Right at the snap of the ball, this tackle gets his hands on the offensive lineman. Whenever you have a lineman trying to get to the next level or a down block, it's really important for this defensive tackle to get his hands on it. It's called squeezing the play down. And what it does is it reduces the space that this lineman has to kick you out. It shortens the hole. It also slows down this lineman from getting to your linebacker, allowing the linebacker to react. Another thing to keep in mind, look at these edge defenders. They're not waiting, right? They're trying to penetrate. They're not just standing still. This also reduces the size of the gap. Another important is this defensive tackle who is getting doubled. He doesn't get blown off his spot. This is really important for the nose guard who gets doubled because Suffern does a really good job of blowing this lineman out of the way and creating space. But look at him fight through the double team. Look at him lower his pad level. This would be really important for Arlington. But look at the penetration. Right, look at him squeeze this play down. There's not much area here. And now, what this 5-man front also did was it freed up the linebacker. Both linemen now are occupied. This allows the linebacker to roam free. And now he's one-on-one with the back, and you want your linebackers to make this play when he comes free. And that's what they do. But look at the rally here. It's a good job. Now, when they come out in spread looks, you can't just always stay in a 5-man front. If Suffern were to attack them through the passing game, they might have to go to a 4-2 front. Okay? And even though this is not exactly a 4-2, I mean, this guy's a bit of a hanger, which means, he's kind of in the box. He might sneak out of the box. But you have to have linebackers in spread looks who can run, who can be decisive, and attack the line of scrimmage. And they have one in this kid right here, Richie Finn. Okay. This is another spread look. This is White Plains. This time they're going to run a jet sweep, attacking the edge of the defense, similar to what Suffern might do. They're going to try to hook this guy on the outside, and they're going to try to get this guard to slow down the linebacker. But you need decisive linebackers, ones that can move. And watch him move right here. Here's a jet sweep. Okay, tackle does a really good job hooking right here. This could be bad for the defense. But watch the linebacker. Look at this. Tacking downhill, not running sideways. And now you're going to see the secondary get involved. To stop Suffern is going to be a team effort. It's not just going to be by the fronts that they put, but also by the linebackers flying to the football. Secondary getting involved. I could see Arlington mixing it up between the 5-man and that, if you want to call it 3-2 or 4-2 with that hanger on, to try to stop this potent rush attack. All right, Mars, let's move now to Suffern. And I'm going to start on the defensive end for Suffern. And they like to run a 4-3 defense. And when everyone is healthy on Suffern, Mars, I think they are stout up front. They're going against a veteran offensive line that I think is one of the biggest strengths to Arlington. With size, you're going to see eye football like we talked about. And you're going to see they're going to bring out a fullback, and they're going to try to isolate your linebackers. They want that fullback to attack the linebacker. They want these linemen, they're going to get some double teams up front, some down blocks, try to move the point of attack. So it's going to be huge up front from guys like Lubin, Yang, Janua, Krebs. They're going to have to hold the point of attack. And we all know about Lubin, right? He's a fantastic football player. But you want to see if you could, instead of either run away from him or run right at him and try to muscle your way through him. I think he's a really good all-around football player. But let them see if they can try to beat him up, right? That's going to probably be the way, if they're going to run at him. Most likely, they probably choose to run the other way, right? So it's going to be important for guys outside of Lubin to make plays if they're starting to try to target away from Lubin. So I'm really intrigued how the defense comes about this. And, Suffern is replacing one of their better free safeties. So, if they start to, spread it out a little bit, I'm interested to see this secondary, right? How do they come together and, make some plays in the passing game? So it's really going to be intriguing for this defense. I think stopping the run is number one and force them to be a passing team, similar to what Arlington's probably going to try to do to Suffern. Try to make them be a passing team. Offensively, Mars, the strength of this team is up front. I expect them to go strength for strength. And, I mentioned these guys already before, but Janua, Krebs, Newmeyer, Lee. Let's see who has the stronger front. Run the football. Run your offense. They want to spread you out to run the ball, attack the C gap, get outside. Let's see if Arlington can stop it. That's what I say if I was Suffern, right? Because that's where our strength is. We are going to set the tempo in the game. We are going to set the line of scrimmage. If I'm Suffern, I ride on my strength. I give the ball to Lubin. I give the ball to Chow. I'd probably have them both on the field at the same time to create some headaches for Arlington. So I'm really, again, intrigued. But what is going to elevate this team, Mars, offensively, is if they can pass. Last year, they had quarterbacks who can run, and they did a really good job of it, right? But can they consistently pass the ball is going to be huge. So a quarterback like Andre Risco, the junior, can he make those kind of plays? Arlington is bringing back a bunch of guys, but they're only bringing back 2 of the 4 secondary guys. So that's where they're going to be a little bit young, and that's where they can be, you want to test their inexperience, right? See if you can create some plays in the passing game. And to me, one of those guys that hasn't been mentioned enough, and I'm going to call him my player to watch, okay? Sam Joseph, the junior. He's a wide receiver. He's kind of a slot back for Suffern. This kid is 5'6", Mars, about 140 pounds, but he is their fastest kid. This is a 4'4", and some change 40-type kid, right? This is the kid you're going to see some jet sweeps with. This is the kid you're going to see them try to target in the passing game. This kid is a home run hitter who might blow up a game with one of his big-time plays, either returning the football or getting on the edge, and that's someone to watch. And Mars, before I go to my matchup, is there any comments that you have about Suffern?
Yeah, I mean, Suffern, between these two teams, I think this is going to be probably the shortest game of the week. I mean, it's the game of the week for sure, but it might be the shortest because they're both looking to run the ball. And I think that Suffern really has a very dynamic front. I mean, you have an very good offensive line, and you have just a combination of backs that just are lethal. And I think that, like as you mentioned, if they can pass the ball, it really will just open up what this offense can really be. And everyone knows Suffern's going to try to run, but the question is going to be how effective are they on the pass, and how effective they are is really going to dictate how well this offense is going to move this game.
Yeah, and for me, the matchup is trench warfare. I call it again. We talked about the trenches in a couple of the games. To me, this is going to be the most fun matchup. Not the most flashy, but if you're a coach, this is the funnest matchup. Is this Suffern O-line, Mars, versus Arlington's front seven with their D-line, Richie Finn, the linebacking core. This is what I want to see. And then on the other side, Arlington's O-line versus that Suffern front with Lubin. That gets me excited just thinking about it. The trench warfare in this game is the matchup to watch, and it's going to dictate which strength is the bigger one on which scene. All right, so that's going to be huge, Mars. All right, you ready for some game picks?
Yeah, man. Let's see it.
All right, we're going to go through all the games, make the decisions. We both want to hit 55% by the end of the year. So we're definitely looking to try to get these right. And if, hey, we pick against your team, maybe that motivates you. I don't know. But let's just go through all the games, Mars, even the ones that we didn't do a breakdown on. And let's start with White Plains at Mamaroneck, Mars. White Plains defeated Mamaroneck in 2019, 39-6. Mamaroneck won the last 2 home games. White Plains won the last 2 games, I think, against Mamaroneck, if I have that correctly. But White Plains has a young quarterback. They're going to be a young and inexperienced line. Mamaroneck is bringing back a bunch of guys on defense. I mean, they have 4 D linemen, 3 secondary coming back. So who's going to win? There's a little more inexperience on White Plains. There's more veterans coming back from Mamaroneck. And for me, I'm going to be choosing Mamaroneck. I think Mamaroneck, like I just talked about, White Plains likes to throw the football, and Mamaroneck is bringing back 4 defensive linemen and 3 secondary players. I think they'll get pressure with the quarterback with their front 4. I think it'll make it difficult to pass the ball. I really do like some of the guys on White Plains, like Pierre, like McGuire, but I think it's going to be tough up front for White Plains to hold, and I think a guy like Jack Benton is going to have a really good game on the offensive side of the ball for Mamaroneck.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Mamaroneck too. I think the first week is really going to be about veteran presence and the fact that you look at White Plains being a very young team, it's hard for them to be ready week one without really having a lot of time to really work out the kinks. But I think Mamaroneck's going to have a difficult a difficult time against White Plains, but I think they will pull it off in the end.
Let's go to the next game, Mars. Port Chester at Scarsdale. And Scarsdale won in 2019 at Port Chester, but Scarsdale is 1-1 at home versus Port Chester. So they've split the series at home, when Scarsdale's at home, And Scarsdale at home in 2019 is 3-1, and Port Chester on the road in 2019 is 4-1. So you got a good road team versus a good home team. And Mars, I'm going to get your opinion first. Who are you taking, Port Chester or Scarsdale?
I'm taking Scarsdale here. I think that Scarsdale has a track record of being a very successful program. I think that they are going to have a good amount of weapons, in my opinion. And I like their scheme, especially in a shortened season like this, when they're running that option offense. It's going to be about discipline, and to combat that on the defensive side, you need to have more practice reps. And I just think that in the COVID season, you're not going to have that. I think Scarsdale at week one is a very difficult team to play against. And I just think that they have the advantage here.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going Scarsdale as well, Mars. Port Chester is a young team with a new coaching staff trying to implement their new schemes. You've had 2 weeks of practice, 1 week of practice if a bunch of your team was playing winter sports. This is really difficult for a young coach, for a new coaching staff to put in their scheme this quick, right? So Scarsdale has a veteran coach. They're bringing back their quarterback. They're bringing back their fullback. They're bringing back a wide receiver. They're bringing back some linemen. This is not an easy test for a young program in Port Chester, and I think the veterans is what's going to separate. I think Port Chester is going to be tough up front, which will give them a chance because I think that's where their strength is. But I think that Scarsdale just has a little too much. And a guy, running back and linebacker, Glance, the junior, he was one of our Frank's finest. He's a guy who I think is going to have a breakout year, and I think it starts this week versus Port Chester. Mars, let's go to one of our breakdown games that we broke down, and it's Yonkers Forest at Yonkers Brave. Who is going to win this rivalry? Again, I mentioned they split the series. The away team has won each matchup. I'm going with Yonkers Brave. I think the trend is going to break. The home team is going to win this one. The Yonkers Forest will be young. They got a new quarterback, a lot of new faces. Yonkers Brave is going to be a little bit older. I mean, they're bringing a new quarterback as well. So, again, both new quarterbacks. But I think they have a little extra weapons that Yonkers Forest, at least we don't know of yet. And guys like Joshua Williams, Bray, Needham, I think they're going to need to make plays. And I think they will on both sides of the ball. So I think Yonkers Brave is going to pull this out. But I do think it's going to be a close one. And I think Yonkers Brave is going to come out top of this little Yonkers rivalry they got.
I think I'm going to go the other way around. I think Yonkers Forest is going to keep the trend going. I really like the athletes, and I think this will definitely be a close game. I also think it will be a quick game just because of the way that these schemes are running. But I really like the matchups here. And honestly, this is almost like that. If you're doing the Vegas odds, this would be a pick'em game. You have no idea, especially with point spread or anything. But the fact is, I really think that Forest has the advantage this time, and they'll win. I think they'll win the rivalry this time.
Next game, Mars, Carmel at Fox Lane. Carmel, the youngest team, one of Todd K's youngest team he's ever had, graduated a bunch of kids. Who's going to win? Is it going to be Fox Lane, the new guy coming to the block, Mars? Who do you have in this one?
I'm going to go Fox Lane this time. I think that Carmel has so many young players on this unit that they're going to be a team that wins as the season progresses. And that's not a knock against Carmel because I know that Todd K is a good coach, but the problem is that when you come back in late, not being able to implement your program right from off season, right from the fall, it's hard to really bounce back and be able to be fully ready for any team you play against. And I just think that having such a young unit, you also don't know, when we did our team preview, we couldn't really know exactly who was going to be the guy, the main guy that we can kind of point to as being this is the Carmel Rams main star. So I think that Fox Lane, with a new coach coming in, will be able to at least implement his system right from the very beginning once he walked in. I think Fox Lane has that advantage for this one.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going with Fox Lane as well. And again, I think this is a tough matchup for a young Carmel team. And it's because I think Fox Lane is too stout on defense for a young offensive line on Carmel, which will create some issues running the football. And they're going to have to rely on their quarterback, which is not going to be a young quarterback, which is not going to be easy either. And, I believe Fox Lane will be balanced on offense. I think they'll try to spread you out and run a little bit. They'll have some success. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think this is going to be a defensive battle between the two teams. And I agree with you about Carmel. I think Carmel gets better as the season goes along, but this is kind of a tough one in the first game, and I'm going with Fox Lane. Next one, Mars, North Rockland at John Jay East Fishkill. Again, we talked about the stats in our breakdown. I'm going with John Jay East Fishkill. Quarterback Beal, one of the best quarterbacks in Class 1AA, in my opinion, the best. And then all those weapons that he has at the wide receiver spot, I think it's just going to be too much for an inexperienced North Rockland secondary. I think I'm interested to see North Rockland's quarterback play. There's definitely a big factor in this game. I think they're both going to test each other strength-wise, running the football. But the difference to me is I think they'll hit on some big plays down the field with Beal, with those weapons that North Rockland cannot keep up with. And I think John Jay's Fishkill is going to win this one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think John Jay's Fishkill is going to be my pick, and it's because of not even just their offense, but their defense is going to be pretty loaded this year. I think that we kind of talked about the secondary is going to be up there with possibly one of the best outside Rochelle, and I think they're going to force North Rockland to try to throw, and I think they're going to cash in on some turnovers. And at the end of the day, if North Rockland doesn't expand their offensive scheme to be somewhat of a passing as well, then that means John Jay's just going to key in on the run, and I think it won't be. I don't think it will be a blowout or anything, but I just think there'll be an easier win for John Jay.
All right, Mars, RCK at Rochelle. And Rochelle, we mentioned how dominant they are at home. RCK is bringing back some veteran teams. I think they're a real solid team. Can they pull off the upset on Rochelle? And I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going with Rochelle, Mars. RCK brings back a bunch of returning starters, but I think Rochelle is just a little bit too talented. They are really tough at home. Again, we talked about it numerous times. I just think they have too many guys right now. And, I think the home opener being this long away from football, I think they're going to be a little extra motivated to make a statement right off the gate. I think this is a tough first game for RCK, but they're going to have a chance. It's going to be up front. I just don't think they have enough, and I'm going with Rochelle.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Rochelle.
I think it'll be a closer game than people think, though.
I'm going to go with Rochelle. So I think the defense is really what's going to bring kind of this game to be. I don't think it'll be as close as you think. I think it would be a little bit opened up. I think by the end of the game, it'll open up to be more, just because Rochelle's defense is going to wear you down, and I think that they're going to do exactly what I said they should do, and that's going to send the heat and force you to have to throw against this top-notch secondary. And I think that the secondary has had an eye for making turnovers, and I think that they're going to do that in this game. I just think that RCK, as you mentioned, just doesn't have enough to kind of start out with an upset win like this.
All right, Mars, our game of the week. Arlington at Suffern. We talked about it. Suffern has lost 6 straight to Arlington. Arlington is one of the biggest schools in 1AA. Suffern, people are expected this team to be a real solid team. So I ask you, who wins this matchup between Arlington and Suffern?
I think Arlington's going to win this one. I think this is probably one of the best Suffern teams they've had in a very long time. I just think that Arlington just has the bodies, they have the juice, they have all this fresh energy coming in. I think that's something that the difference maker between Arlington and Suffern is that Arlington just has a bigger problem with so many bodies that they have available to them. And also just the question is going to be, is it a run attack show on Suffern, or is it going to be more than that? And that's going to be the big question in my eyes. And that will be really the game changer. If Arlington can limit the run attack on Suffern, then I think this will be a big win for Arlington to start the season. Mm-hmm. If they don't, then it'll be a lot more. It'll be difficult, but that's why I think Arlington is going to not stuff the run, but slow down the run.
You make a lot of good points, Mars. Arlington is a big school, got a lot of depth. I think these are two of the better teams. It's hard to argue against Arlington. So I am definitely going to choose Suffern on this one, Mars, because I'm going to tell you why. This is one of Suffern's best teams ever. Okay? I love their dual threat at quarterback. At running back. And I think their young quarterback, is going to make some plays. This is a kid who plays baseball. They're going to have a little more of a throwing dynamic. I think this is going to be a close game for for practically the entire game. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think both teams are going to have some success running the ball. And the difference is going to be passing. And I know Arlington's bringing back a quarterback who passed a little bit better, but I also think Suffern has some speed in the secondary. It will be a tougher matchup compared to what Arlington is to the Suffern wide receivers. And that's why I'm going with Suffern. I think this is going to be, they're not just going to play, with a lot of motivation. I think they're going to play, for a fallen teammate that they've had. And I'm not going to go into the tragedy that went on in Suffern. but I think they're going to play for a fallen teammate. I think this is going to be an extra motivated game. I think this is going to be one of the biggest wins that they have in the program, and I think it's going to be a great way to start the season. So that's going to be my pick. I'm going with Suffern Mars. So that is our show, everyone. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, and just overall, I think we're going to be seeing games that are whittled down. Like we're going to see the playbook whittled down. We're going to see a bunch of basic stuff, and I'm expecting to see some sloppiness, Mars. I don't know about you.
No, I think so.
I'm expecting to see some rust. I'm expecting to see some penalties. But I think it's going to be really great that we have some football, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think everybody's been itching it, the players, the coaches, the parents. I think everybody it wants to have the season. They're cooking. Unfortunately, you can't have the student section there too. But at the end of the day, football's back, right? And I think that's the bottom line. And I think that's just already, like I said before, it's already an achievement. Having football come back, being able to watch it, whether you're watching a local live or you're watching it in person, I think this is a big deal.
Absolutely. And we want to thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon.